You that are with us, we thank you for joining us. We wanted to do something a little bit different than what we'd been doing in the past with Wendy in terms of some of the things that Grant Cardone has been talking about from a sales perspective, and just talk about a different way of doing dentistry overall. And this is not a plug that says, hey, get rid of your hygienist, drop your insurance, go out of network. This is a way where you can develop concepts and possibly apply things that out of network providers are doing in their practice to be more successful, and possibly see if it is an option for you to work that way ultimately and be more in control of the treatment you're offering and the time that you're putting in at your actual practice, the staff that you have on hand, and ultimately the overhead that you take on. And there is some people who want, tons of rooftops, a huge practice, lots of people, and that's completely fine. And that's the beautiful thing about dentistry, is you can practice it the way you want. And so I know Dr. Schefdore was actually a pioneer in kind of setting up the office with this model where it wasn't reliant on hygiene, wasn't reliant on chair hopping, wasn't relying on insurance providers, the reimbursements, and all the things that come with that. So we have brought Dr. Schefdore in to kind of share that with you today, give you some tactical things to implement, and then also kind of talk about who this might be good for. And if I'm correct, Dr. Schefdore also has a questionnaire that he has available, or you can take to see if this is something that makes sense for you. And then from there, I'm going to jump in and let Dr. Schefdore take the floor.
Well, thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, no problem at all. Super thankful that you actually decided to share this with us. I was at a seminar for delivering WOW in Jamaica, and like I was saying, I was speaking with the owner of PPO Profits, and he was talking about how this has really impacted a lot of people recently in terms of their overhead going up, staffing being harder to find, and then cases they find themselves working on not being as fulfilling. So let's jump right in.
All right, good.
Yeah, a little background here, so I'll let you go through that.
All right. I'll read my bio. I'm 37 years. I practice clinical dentistry in the Chicago suburbs, very competitive western suburb. I've been a speaker, writer, coach, mentor in the dental field for decades. I have a nutraceutical or a dental vitamin company, the only one with a double-blind research on periodontal patients. I'm the first one that started doing blood tests in the dental office on periodontal patients, seeing their before and after health. So I pioneered some things through the last 37 years, including this no hygiene model. But we bought our first office for $75,000, and before we knew it, we had 3 offices, 6 associates, and a staff of 30. And we were doing really good until it burned me out after 17 years. So the guys that want big practices, please talk to me about it. I could certainly tell you how that road is going to go. It's for some, but I could, for me, it wasn't for me. But, I show other dentists how they can flourish if they want a big practice, medium practice, or small practice. And the small practice is simple, but when you're younger, sometimes you don't like simple. You want something bigger. So that's great. But there's some issues today after COVID that are kind of unique to dentistry. Hygienists, there's a lot of hygienist issues now. We never used to have these kind of hygienist issues. And so they're harder to find. And I was just telling you, right? 10 doctors had called me in the last 2 days with hygienist issues, plus PPO problems. But some are difficult to work with. We can't keep up with the high demands of their pay if the insurance company is cutting what they're reimbursing dentists. And then, the insurance, I mean, to write off 20 to 50% of your production is working your butt off and not getting really any pay for it. I just talked to a doctor now making $2.5 million and bringing home 150,000. I mean, it's just this is way too hard of a job to do. But it's hard to make income when you got to reduce that much every day. I don't want you to have to worry about making your next payment. So this is a simple plan that's really almost recession proof, because the overhead's so low with the no hygienist program. And a lot of these doctors are just exhausted too. I don't know how many of you guys are starting to feel burnout. If you haven't felt it yet, usually happens around the 15-year mark. 12 to 15 years seems to be a common number when I talk to dentists. That you're just like, oh my God, I can't do this for another 20 years.
That makes sense. I was going to ask everyone in the chat, kind of how long they've been in dentistry and if it's become harder and they're feeling that. I know that people who are not, go ahead, Dr. Chin, did you have something? Well, I think maybe he's
Dr. Chin might be working on the patient there.
Yeah, we'll just go ahead and mute him. Not the host, but anyways, okay. So in terms of the model itself, right? So can you talk a little bit about, how it works, and then also some pieces that can be realistically implemented into any practice, now or kind of in the future?
Absolutely. If you could mute Dr. Chin, thanks. Less staff to manage. Most doctors have a very difficult time managing a large staff. I mean, I would say that's probably the number one stress that I hear from dentists is managing a lot of people. It was certainly for me. I mean, managing 30 monkeys was tough every day. And so 3 staff, you don't need more than 3 staff. So it's really easy to manage. The overhead's really cut. I mean, I had under a 50% overhead. Some doctors have a 40% overhead. You don't have to be involved with insurance. You can, and you can still make this work. You're just going to get a little bit less profit. But being out of network or mostly out of network, it works even better. I was able to retire younger than a lot of dentists financially. If you do this, you'll be able to find more work and do a little bit larger cases, which are much more efficient. You don't have to reduce your production. So if you do work hard, you get rewarded for it. No chair hopping. I couldn't stand to be in a conversation with a patient or being involved in an hour and a half, long procedure and then being interrupted. It drove me nuts. I don't know how you guys do it, but that's just not for me. And then, we just don't have to worry about hygienist issues or going on vacation and worrying that the hygiene department is totally booked and you got to be there. I never had that issue.
No, that's I know that these are some things that people who take this on and go this route can benefit from, but people who are currently in network with insurance, right? I think it can be a source of patients and getting a lot of people on the books and filling the schedule. So what's a way to kind of have a frame shift around that and look at what type of patients are we going to get, where are they going to come from, how are they going to pay? Do you mind touching on some of those things?
No, not at all. Okay, so this is a low volume, right? And everybody, I don't know why our profession wants to run as many people through their office as possible. You don't need to do that. If you spend time with patients, and I could show dentists how to present treatment to patients for a higher acceptance. But when you take time to diagnose and you thoroughly diagnose and you go through this 5-step process to show patients, what's going on in their mouth and then asking them what they want to do, put everything in their lap so you don't have to sell. You never sell dentistry. You never have to sell, but you got to ask people questions and go what they want to do. But that actually even starts with their initial interview. You say, how can I help you? And you just write notes. That's what they're willing to buy. You have to find out what they want to buy. they don't give a rat's behind what you think. You think they do. Doc, you're not that important. It's what's important to them. They're the ones with the paycheck for us, and we have to find out what they want. That way we can incorporate what we want, getting them healthier, and making sure that they're safe. There's not a lot of risk. They can hold on to their teeth their whole life, all the things we want, and now we can incorporate what they want. A lot of doctors just always keep talking and say what they want and what has to be done. And that acceptance usually for many parts of the country is pretty low. So
Yeah, one thing that they touched on, which I thought was surprising, is a lot of times the dentist get the impression that patients don't move forward with treatment or aren't able to move forward with treatment due to cost factors. And that's actually the fifth reason that people say no. The first reason has to do with trust. They don't 100% trust either the dentist or what they're telling them. And a lot of times this is because they didn't take the time. And they walk in the room, they say a bunch of clinical terms to either the nurse or the treatment coordinator, a couple tooth numbers, and then they walk out, and now that person feels fear. They're kind of confused. And so can you tell me about that 5-step process that you said you use to kind of walk them through what you're hoping to achieve while they're in your care?
absolutely. The initial contact is, like I said, how can I help you? You sit down, you talk to them, and you start writing notes, and you just get them talking. And then when they're done talking, you say, well, is there anything else that's important? Is there anything else? Then if they stop, say, okay, do you like the way your teeth look? Do you like the color of your teeth? You could finish with the cosmetics just to get them to talking, because that'll lead into more talking. And most doctors will say, well, that's just a waste of time. Well, how are you going to know what they're going to buy? That you don't have to sell them anything unless you take the time. How do you build trust? Trust is based on time. I mean, did you ask your wife to marry you, or your husband to marry you by going out and talking for 5 minutes? I mean, it doesn't work that way. They're getting married with you. They're giving their hard-earned money. For me, I mean, $10,000 to $50,000 cases. I mean, those cases, if somebody's going to fork over that kind of money, and most of my patients were not wealthy. I would say middle to upper middle class. They were making between $60,000, $100,000 to $150,000 a year. It's not super wealthy people. And I was doing large cases, and I love that group. So that 5-step procedure, you have to know what they're going to buy. And then you have to show them. It's show and tell. You show them intraoral picture, a Pro camera. Get one. I could explain all the benefits later, but you can see incipient decay with it. It's a nice camera. They can see everything. You show them, and you say, okay, do you see this crack? You see this filling? There's more filling than tooth. Okay, good. When we get to this part, you see this black area. It looks like mold growing around it. And they go, ugh, but you got to use words like that. They understand it. But when they go, ugh, that means that they don't want that in their mouth. So it's going to be very easy to say, look, I've got to take that out, that moldy old filling, put a big filling in it, but you can see that the whole tooth is filling, so it's going to break. So I use my hand. So we put something over it called a crown to protect the tooth. Does that make sense? And so I always ask questions to get them to answer, so they're always involved. And say, okay, here's the choices. And after I explain the choices, step 3, then they go and choose what they want. Step 4, we talk about, can you afford $150 a month with no interest? Most people that are working can, or $200 without interest. And then we use vendors that guarantee that everybody can be approved, not Care Credit. There's way better vendors than Care Credit. They're cheaper to the doctor, and they approve everybody. Care Credit and the typical ones dentists use, they just aren't working well because they disapprove 25% of the people. So you go ahead and work out the finances, and then the final step is you make the appointment right there in the operating room with your assistant. You call the assistant in, say, hey, Sally, Mrs. Jones is going to need blah, blah, blah. I'd like her to come in as soon as possible. Bring my schedule up, so the patient can't see it. It's behind the patient. I have the ability to move people around if I want. If it's a case it's big and I really want her in, I'm going to move some people. If I've got a cleaning, but I'll send that person a card, a little gift card for adjusting their schedule. So those are the 5 steps. In each of those steps, we could talk more in depth. But if you follow those 5 steps, and I train dentists on how to do that, their acceptance rate goes up. When you clean the teeth, a dentist doesn't have to clean them. You're just basically doing a sonic cleaning around the tooth. The assistant does all the rest if you're in a state that allows that. But it forces you to look at every tooth and find more work, build a rapport, and show it to patients. And that's where the money is in dentistry. That's the thing. Most PPO doctors spend 2 to 5 minutes on an exam. I spent 30. Who do you think is going to find more work? Who's going to get a higher acceptance? Right? The doctors that are chair hopping can't do bigger cases because they require more trust, more time, and they're not doing that. So quit doing it. You don't need the volume. Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was still muted. This kind of leads into, right, what did you have more of? So more time with patients. I think you talked a little bit about thorough patient education, right? Like, and that's one of the really big things, right? A lot of times we just come in, we see something, we put together the intervention plan, and boom, we think that they either should know whether they want to do it or not. And that's one of the things where, a little bit of education, caring for them, giving them the ability to have options, right? And not only options around what treatment is available, but how you're going to make dentistry affordable to them, right? Not everybody can come in, and PPO providers are still very successful because they bring in the right financing providers that help their patients move forward. And any office can do that, and any office can implement the proper financing people or partners, into their practice, and immediately have the ability to help more patients, do bigger cases. And I think that's really important. So one of your big mottos is less stress, more satisfaction, and better balance, right?
Yep.
On a day-to-day level in the office, what does that mean?
Okay, so when you don't have to see high volumes of patients, you're getting rid of a lot of human factors that could come into the office that cause a lot of stress, right? People in pain, just masses of people are problems. So get rid of the masses of people and you have less problems. I love patients, but the more that you see that want to go to a dentist, they obviously, a lot of them have problems. Why would you want to see 40 problems in a day, 50 problems in a day? I only saw 5 to 10 patients a day. So I didn't have a lot of human beings coming in with tons and tons and tons of problems. So I was able to present things and find things to do. I was very satisfied, more satisfied, because when you build a rapport with a patient, that's caring for them. And that brings me satisfaction. I was able to do some bigger cases and go, look what we did for them. We got hugs every day from people. Who hugs their dentist, right? Certainly not in the PPO setting very much, right? And I enjoyed that. My staff got it, hugs. My staff, there's been people that tried to steal them for years for more money and this and that. They never left. They worked for a dentist that was more important than a job or just getting money. It gave them a lot of satisfaction too, and less stress too than a lot of other jobs. And then the balance, I love the hours, right? You can pick any hours that you want. That's why it starts with the questionnaire. We find what's important to the doctor, what treatment, what hours they want to work, how many hours. We have to know all about the doctor, and then we custom make that practice for the doctor so they enjoy showing up every day. The doctors that like this obviously are doctors that want more income. I mean, for me, I'm an old guy, right? It was pretty easy for me to do $1 million and come home with more than I have 50% of that. So I don't know. There's not a lot of guys making $500,000 or $600,000 on a pretty relaxed schedule without placing implants. I didn't do any endo, and I didn't do ortho. You're going, what? To me, that seems normal. To you guys, it seems pretty weird. So that's why I trained dentist. But to me, it was just a dream job for the last 20 years. I enjoyed interacting with people, and I enjoyed caring for them. They don't teach caring in schools. There's not a lot of classes on how to care for people. I'm really shocked at that. It's all about clinical dentistry, and everybody's zeroed in on clinical dentistry. Why? Any monkey could learn clinical dentistry. Docs, sorry, it doesn't take, if you do a root canal enough times, you're going to get good at it. If you do a crown enough times, right? I think most people can learn the clinical dentistry. What about the caring part? How do you take care of people? Physicians really need to know this too. I mean, it's awful with physicians' offices, in my opinion, on caring. And dentists are following in the same suit. Go back and learn how to care for people. If you don't know how to, if you want to, pick up the phone and call me. And I don't have all the answers, but find a doctor that is caring and is enjoying dentistry. Just a whole lot more fun.
That's a great point. Again, going back to the trust, right? So, I know you practiced dentistry for 37 years, and a majority of that time was doing this. And we have some, actually more people on the call that are probably part of the team and the staff, also some dentists. But what are things that you would do to curate your patient experience to make sure that they felt that level of care? And how did you have your team members kind of carry themselves, speak, act? Was there a protocol around that? Can you share a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have to dress for success, right? When you buy really nice uniforms, embroider their name in it. We had a hair and nail check. I mean, it's like, no, you got to look good, present yourself like a professional. When the patient comes in, get up and walk around the desk, right? Don't just, not even, when you walk into many dental offices and medical offices, no one even pays attention. Or they say, sign in. It's just so rude. It's like you're not even happy to see me. But when they walk into my office, it smelled good, it looked good. I had somebody smiling, even if they didn't want to, if they were having a bad day. It's showtime. You smile, you walk around the desk, you shake their hand or say, hey, I'm glad you're here today. Please follow me. And you don't make people wait a bunch of times. I don't even know why we had a waiting room except for staff meetings. People don't have to wait on this model. People love that. It's like, wow, I'm going to a doctor and I don't have to wait. Oh, the doctor spent time to explain things to me. He showed me things. Care, anything, make sure like your best friend comes in. Treat them like your best friend. You wouldn't get away with doing all this. They're just a patient. Who's a patient? They're paying you. They're your best friend right now, and you're taking care of them. Love them and take care of them. If you don't know how to love somebody in a business setting, I mean, I think that's, if you're in the healthcare field, you have to learn how to care.
Right. Definitely. Can you talk a little bit about the types of patients that were coming in, you were treating, the types of cases that you were doing, and then how you were presenting that treatment, and ultimately, how you were overcoming some objections and different things like that as well too?
Yeah, I mean, price is important. And when you have to get dentistry to be more important in their mind when they're in your office than holding on to their money, right? When they come in, they want to hold on to their money and do a little bit of dentistry. You have to turn that around. They want to let go of their money and get this dentistry done. I love it when they grab me by my tie and say, can you start this today? I know I did it right. I actually had that happen to me quite a few times. People will just say, I need this done, like today. It's an art to learn how to do that with people. And I'm not manipulating them, but I'm showing them what's going on and explaining to them and giving them some choices. And now they're like, nobody's ever told me this before. You know, it's important to them now. So you have to get to know them to find out what is important to them and show them what can do and give them choices and get them involved in the conversation. So their price becomes secondary to them. And that's the key. Price has to become secondary, not the primary thing. You go into a PPO setting, what's the precedence? They're the cheapest guy in town. I'm saving money. I don't have to spend a lot of money. That's why they sign up for PPOs. That's why I never did sign up for PPOs. I don't want that to be the number one reason they're coming to me. So they want gentle, they want a considerate care, personalized care from the doctors and staff. So the best patient to do this on is not the wealthy patients. So you only got wealthy patients. I had very few wealthy patients. They were a pain in my butt because you want to bring somebody up and show them a better experience than what they're used to. Well, the people that are making $60,000 to $150,000, they come into my place and I show them 5-star service. They're not used to ultra 5-star service. And it's a level up for them and they feel better. Mrs. Gut Rocks comes in and you know, your hair is out of place a little bit or something isn't perfect. They're going to just blast you because they're used to 5-star plus service. And who could do that all day long, every day? So I actually enjoy that economic level to come in, show them better service than what they're used to, and that's why they stayed. That's why they gave me their money to do larger treatments. They don't want people to see them, multiple people at the same time, just like COVID, right? People are a little scared about COVID in the back of their minds, like, you know, oh, he's seeing this guy. I'm one of 5 people. And, you know, people are not as comfortable as they were before COVID. If you're running a big mill, in the back of their mind, it's still there. So they're looking for a dentist that just wants, you know, a dentist that's considered better than average in the area.
Yeah, that makes sense. So one of the things I was going to see is could you tell us a little bit about your treatment plan presentation? How do you what's the secret behind having them pull the tie? What are we doing?
Well, remember, we discussed that 5-step sequence.
Right.
And that's really as easy as it gets, but knowing what's important to them, showing them exactly what the problem is, getting off your seat and pointing to them. You say, oh, you see that crack over there? You know, half the time I found out that they were looking at something completely different. You got to get up. It's almost like an instructional. You point to it on the TV. And, you know, I had nice big, I don't know, what were they, 55-inch TVs in front of the chair. And it was great when you blow it up. You know, when you have periodontal disease, you tell them what the expectation is, that, you know, you shouldn't get any pain, blood, or pus. Use those words when I touch your gums and do a perio probing or a probing on your gums. Let's see what happens. And you do it and they say, ouch. And you don't have to do it hard. You know how many people come in with perio. But when you put a still shot on a 55 screen in front of them and they see pus and blood, they're going to go, ooh, and you go, yeah, rinse that out. You don't have to sell anything. They don't want that in their mouth. So show and tell, and tell them what the options are. Tell them, you know, what the cost is. And can you afford $150 a month? Or can you afford $250 a month? No. Okay, what can you comfortably afford per month? And if it's a larger treatment plan, say, great. Good news is we can do that. We're going to use this year's insurance, next year's insurance, and make this affordable for you. And we'll be done in 2 stages. How does that sound to you? So get them to agree. Always ask questions and get them to agree. Call in your assistant. You make the appointment. If it's an hour or longer, I always had them put down a reservation fee, a non-refundable reservation fee, and I do that right there in the operatory. I go, there's going to be a reservation fee because, you know, you're going to be the only one in my office. It's a non-refundable fee. I have no problem telling that to the patient. So that goes back to, I start working on 2 things right at the beginning with dentists. I find that, if I could work on a strong purpose, a lot of dentists really don't have a strong purpose of going into work anymore, into the practice, and working on their confidence. I would say 85% of the dentists that I work with, their confidence is just shot. It's just shot. They've been beat up in dental school. They've been beat up by patients, PPOs. There's so many things, negative things coming in their life. We just got to get rid of that and get back to having them realize how good they are at this and get their confidence up, give them a purpose. Holy cow. I mean, go on my DRS Coaching Systems Facebook page. You'll see a few testimonials on their doctors doubling and tripling their income within 4 or 5 months. That's how powerful it is.
That's amazing. In terms of the financing partners that you recommend, can you name a few and say, what exactly you like about them, or what is unique about them?
Yeah.
And
The
also
one-
how we'll make sure that we get that information and drop that for people who are interested in getting in contact with you to partner up.
Yeah, just get a hold of me. I'll give you a list of who I recommend. I'll show you where to buy supplies and save money. What credit card vendor to use that'll save money. My son-in-law owns a bunch of gyms. He just saved his 4 gyms like $2,000 a month just on fees. So, and there's so
Well,
many.
we might need that, to be honest.
I'll give you his name. Yeah.
Please.
And what he does, you just send him a couple of months and he'll tell you how much he's saving you. He's been in dentistry for about 15 years, wrote a lot of articles about it. But I can't believe how bad dentists are being taken advantage of just in little areas. Which brings up my next thing. When you're being more productive, at the same time, you have to lower your overhead. You have to start saving money somewhere without giving up quality. If you do those 2 things together, which they should be done together, that's how you make huge profits very quickly. So we'll show you how to reduce the overhead, simple things that you could do without giving up any quality, get you more productive, and just get all the stress, not all the stress. Dentistry's tough, but we can eliminate a lot of the stress and get more of a balance in your life and get you to like dentistry again and, be able to retire. How many dentists can't retire is amazing to me. I'm talking to so many dentists that are 55 to 65. They have maybe $500,000 in their savings. I mean, how are you going to ever retire with that? I mean, it's
that that's something that I think is not a side of dentistry a lot of people talk about is eventually how are you going to exit, what does that look like, and how can you transition and still make the biggest financial, I guess, exit for yourself possible now without a huge active patient base and all these extra things. Does the practice value, does it increase, does it decrease? And then ultimately, if somebody wanted to implement a model like this or make some of these changes, what's the timeline you're seeing behind that?
Okay, so if you want to change like this, typically it's 6 months to 18 months. So that's the change. Just depends on the doctor and the situation. The valuation of the practice. Now, I had 3 practices and sold them. And so I don't know, I know a little bit about it. Let me ask, I guess this is the choice. Get a big practice and have maybe a 25% profit, but work your ass off and sell it for a little bit more at the end, like maybe a few $100,000 more, or have a smaller practice and make an extra $200,000 while you're working every year and sell it for $300,000 less. If you do $1 million practice and it's got a 50% overhead, to sell it for 800 to 900,000, 7, 8, 900,000, isn't that tough to do? If you have $1 million PPO practice and it's making 250, I don't think you're going to get a whole lot more than that anyway. So you almost have to do $2 or $3 million of a PPO practice before it starts to get interesting. But that really is the least amount of my financial wealth. Is this, if you're counting on the sale of your practice for your retirement, yeah, it's a piece of it, but it's not a big chunk of mine. You know, I did a lot better taking a lot higher income. Oh yeah, and I could show you, you know, who I use for that. He deals with high net high net worth people, and they got some different strategies, and it's been great to me, and I'll be happy to supply that. Marketer, working with a great marketer. There was a time about 7 years ago where my practice went down $100,000. None of my advertising and marketing was working. I couldn't believe it. The next year, another 100,000. I'm going, holy cow, I'm going to have to go into PPOs or do something. So thank God, you know, my marketer was top notch in her class at Ohio State in marketing and business. And she took it on, and got the $200,000 back, like pretty quick for me. But she figured it out. She's young. And I think younger people have their pulse on marketing much better than others. I mean, like, right, TikTok is really kind of new. Why aren't people doing more TikTok? I mean, what's your explanation, right? Well, they should be, right?
So my biggest reason that I see people kind of staying away from TikTok is that it actually requires work. It's not like one of these other platforms such as, you know, Facebook or possibly Google. You know, TikTok, there's some brand behind it. It requires some work. We need some videos. Those have to get changed out. And ultimately, you know, the fact of them thinking they have to be on camera, it's just all so far out of what they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And you know, it kind of goes back to how people are comfortable in practicing dentistry, right? Like, you know, it's an uncomfortable thing to think about to, you know, lower the number of active patients and get rid of insurance and do all and you know, cut your schedule down to 4 or 5 patients a day. But ultimately, you know, that can net you more money. You know, we saw multiple testimonials you sent over where people are netting well over $250,000 extra per year with, you know, vacationing and doing all the things that you mentioned. Demographically, I know we put together some information here around, you know, the best type of patients or areas to kind of you know, implement or put some of these things into practice. Can you kind of touch on some of those?
Yeah, I really found through the years, in talking with other dentists that have done the same, in today's dollars, it's 75,000 to 150,000. Is that particular group usually has pretty good credit. A lot of those individuals through the years haven't really taken the best care of themselves, as opposed to wealthy. If they've been wealthy their whole life and their parents were wealthy, well, they've all been taken care of, right? Good oral hygiene, they had braces, you know, they don't typically need a lot of work. The next level down from that, however, maybe the hygiene wasn't great, maybe they didn't have the best upbringing, they had to work their butts off to get to where they are. Those people are falling apart a little faster, I found. They got good credit, they want good dentistry, and they want to get treated really well. And I just found that they're more grateful, very grateful, if you really do a good job with them. It's rewarding for me, but I just love that economics. But you know, there's a lot of places that have that. Now, if you're in rural America and you're the only dentist, well, I don't think you really have to worry about the income, right? There's just no competition. But there's so many dentists today. I had 12 dentists within a short walking distance of me. Right? It's a very competitive area, western suburbs of Chicago. And and I was the most expensive in the area too. So I had no problem there. Everybody else is diving to the bottom, wanting to do, you know, whatever they got to do. And it's like, why? Why do that? Why see masses of people and not care for them? just go the opposite way and try it. And I'll be happy to help you and explain it more. Just give me a call.
Sure. In terms of the one step up service, like what are some common things that you see that can elevate an experience or from the patient's perspective that's going to kind of, give you that one step up?
It starts with the philosophy. We teach dentists how to be leaders. Nobody's ever taught them that. We'll teach them some leadership skills, but you have to train the staff to, how they mentally have to look at your practice. What I would suggest doing is going to a 5-star restaurant, 5-star hotel, going to the best of the best, spend a few bucks and see how they do it. And just take it right out of their book. You want to go to the Rolls-Royce dealership, see how they sell their cars. You got to see how the best is treating people. How is it they could sell a $500,000 car? What did they do different, right? And then go to the Kia. You'll see a difference in them. But, and like I discussed before, people that are making $70,000 to $150,000 a year aren't used to a daily 5-star service no matter where they go. They just aren't used to that. So I wanted to produce the best experience in that area for that class of people so they would feel good when they left. You did it right when people give you money and they thank you, right? They give you a whole bunch of money and thank you for doing this for me, and they feel good giving you their money. That's when you know you've done it right. And you can only do that if you care for people and you give them service that they really don't expect, especially.
Absolutely. I think one of the things too that is important to mention is this isn't giving them stuff or things being free, discounts. No, like I just went, like I said, when I was in Jamaica, the Hyatt Hotel. So everybody goes through a 2-week onboarding process, and all the interactions that they have with the guests there, they are required to place their hand over their heart like this. So anytime they see you, hello, sir, how are you? Anything I can do to assist? And it's one of those things, it's a visual cue. It's very kind of endearing and disarming and makes you feel really good. And they're at a high level of service. And that's highly curated, but it's absolutely free. And it definitely, helps the experience and how they're feeling. And those are small things that you can do. Make sure that you're touching on those things in the daily huddle, how you treat people, what we want to make sure that everyone feels like today that comes into our office, right? They feel like this is how we operate. And then they want to be a part of that in terms of their dental health. And so that one step up service can really be curated through your team for free without having to invest in anything to give away or discounting your services. Matter of fact, it can help you probably increase the price, or not increase, but get more acceptance around that when they want to do their work with you. In terms of changing around or some tweaks that you can make that have the benefits of this model, if you want to kind of run us through that really quick.
Yeah, I have this questionnaire, and how this questionnaire became about was 20 years ago when I was burnt out. Me and my wife developed this questionnaire because I go, what am I going to do when I grow up here? I says, I can't be doing this. I don't even want to go into work anymore. I love the patients, but I just don't like this business. So I sold the business. It was very profitable and followed my wife's advice. I took a year off and tried to figure out, okay, what do I want to do? We came up with this questionnaire. And on these questionnaires, a short questionnaire, 12 questions or so, and you take your time with it and really be very selfish, because it's all about what you want, not about what I want to hear. What do you think other people like? It's really what you want. So now you're going to go ahead and we're going to make an office that's to your strengths and your liking. And so that's the first thing we do. And then along with getting a purpose and getting some confidence. And now teaching you how to carry that over into your staff and learn some leadership skills. You've got the clinical skills. Most doctors, 95% of the doctors have certainly enough clinical skills to do just great. It isn't the clinical skills that's the problem. It's all this stuff. And if you go to any of these Facebook groups or anywhere, it's always clinical. Learn to do this. We got to learn to do that. It's always clinical. No, it's not. You guys have plenty of skills. Stop with the CE already. Learn how to care people and do the other part of dentistry if you really want your practice to take off. I proved this with every dentist I've talked to. There's been over 500 that have called me in the last 3 years since I retired from clinical dentistry that I spent time with. I mean, and nobody's teaching them this stuff. So you got to just create an office where people enjoy coming there. We got to teach you how to communicate with people, ask questions, wait for their answers, and just how to do that, because nobody's doing that in dentistry, not too much in medicine either. So
it's very true. I hate to say this, it's kind of hurts me a little bit, but the other day I went in my dad's office, and he's a physician. He does the brain and nervous system, but they had their company ethos or their model or whatever it is written on the wall. And he's been practicing for like 35 years. And, I didn't even know it. And I was like, oh, wow, you have one of those. And you can tell it's one of those things that's just up there, it's not really in practice. And, I can see that one of the things that you work on is the confidence and redeveloping purpose.
Yeah.
And what that does typically is it binds your team, or it binds your office or your practice around the new culture. And that energy is definitely going to help create a new kind of surge, I think, in your treatment production, because everybody's acting in step. They're now giving that Disney experience. Everybody believes in kind of what you're doing and where you're going. And there's not all this fragmentation and people talking and one people, in one certain group or train of thought. And that's one of those things that I think is important. Whoops. So can you talk a little bit about communication skills? What are like some of the most important things that you see practices typically kind of messing up on their patient communication?
Well, most do. I mean, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? We're supposed to listen twice as much as we talk. And unfortunately, every office I go into, I almost without exception, the doctor just don't shut up. And you have to, and doesn't ask questions. It's all about what the doctor thinks. And he's always spewing his crap out. Stop it. Ask the patient a question and be quiet and listen. Write it down. What's their dog's name? What's their kid's name? Write it on a piece of paper and put it in your notes in your, in the computer, so you can refer to that when they come in. Hey, how's your granddaughter Sally doing? It's very easy to do, to ask them some questions and just get them talking, writing some notes. And then you could even look at that before you go into the room. First thing out of your mouth, hey, how's your granddaughter Sally doing? They're like, oh, he remembers me. He didn't remember anything. He just looked at his notes before he came in. That's so powerful, because the doctor cares about me. You go, well, that's so fake. No, I mean, it's showtime. This is what you do in business. You do care, but there's no way that you can remember all this stuff. So you got some cheat sheets, but you do care. You do want to learn how they're doing. But, you have to learn how to schedule patients with a no hygienist model. It's not like scheduling like anybody else has taught you. And all this crap that, overhead and where your overhead should be. Oh, your staff salary should be 25% and 23%. Mine was 7% to 12% on staff salaries. How could you have 7%? Well, it was in my 30s and 40s, and you could do anything then. So I didn't need a lot of people at all. You get in your 50s, it's like, yeah, give me some more help. Yeah, I'm going to pay for that. But I ended up with 3 staff, but I could have certainly done 2. three cross-trained staff is better, because if somebody's sick or somebody quits, you're never with your pants down, right? So 3 to me was really good. Another big thing on making profits in the practice and getting some good net worth is running your practice by statistics with 7 reports. And I go through these reports with the doctors. In fact, right after this, I'm going with another doctor through the 7 reports. This is the second time. And I'm giving him a mini test today so he can manage his own. And I like working with doctors for maybe 2 or 3 months and give them all this knowledge so they don't need me anymore. So these 7 reports are so valuable. I ran my very large practice with it, with 6 associates and a staff of 30. And I ran my small 3 employee practice with these 7 reports. But it gives you, running by statistics, gives me in 10 minutes, I know exactly the health of the practice and what I need to do this month. I don't run by the seat of my pants. Effective marketing, better financing options. You know, we talked about lowering overhead. There's just so many topics that we could hit on. And I can send you my topic sheet that I go through it with doctors too, if you want.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. I mean, one of the things that we do want to put up here is Dr. Schefdore's information. You know, if you guys are interested in what Dr. Schefdore has actually written, it's a book, Better Service, Better Dentistry, Better Income. And I know a few dentists that have enjoyed reading that and taken some great tidbits out of that in terms of what they can implement into their practice. I know that the majority of the people were really intrigued around the financing options, you know, that you might be able to kind of to get them linked up with. So I see we have your email contact there, Chicagoland Dental Office at gmail.com.
Yep, that's good. That a little tidbit about the book, when I wrote it, I had 3 offices, and you know, we bought those and built them very profitable in a very short amount of time. And I had to look back, how did we do that? And so it occurred to me one day, it all stemmed from this one idea. If you want to explode the practices like I did, anybody can do it. But the ADA, it was interesting. The ADA, I don't know, somebody in the ADA caught wind of my book and read it. And they called me up and they go, you know, we'd like to sell your book for you. And the ADA sold my book for a couple of years. I mean, I don't know how many thousands they sold, but it was pretty cool that, you know, the ADA came out and sold it for me too. So it's worth reading. Twice to the bathroom, you'll be done with it. But it tells you where to start if you want to explode your practice.
Absolutely. I think you've definitely shared some valuable tidbits here. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. If we have any questions, I know we're on a tight timeline here. We have about 5 minutes left. I'm going to check the chat just to see. I don't see anything in the chat. If anybody has any questions, you can either drop it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. Dr. Schefdore would be happy to kind of visit with you here. We also do have Dr. Schefdore's contact information that we will be sending out in the recap via the email. To kind of wrap things up, I did kind of want to ask you one last question here. If you were to kind of think about ultimately, right, where most people could make kind of that needle moving difference in their practice, whether they're in network, out of network, what would it be?
2 things. It starts with the gas. You got to put gas in the engine. And the biggest motivators, or the biggest thing to change the needle very quickly, is working on the doctor's confidence and a strong purpose. That will drive everything else. When you do that, it opens up your mind. Your mind explodes with ideas that you didn't have before that.
What are ways that people can build their dental confidence?
What I do is I ask each of them, what are you good at? What do you like to do in dentistry? And we'll go through it. And I go, why? Tell me why you're good at that. What happens? I really try to dissect it and see if they are good at it. And all of a sudden I go, okay, you just told me 7 things that you're really good at. Why don't we just do those 7 things? They go, what do you mean? I got to do this, this, that. I go, no, I never did. I says, I only did 7 to 10 things in my office. That's all I did. But boy, I was really good at it and I was efficient. You mean I could only do this? Well, yeah. If you're not great at root canals and you don't like them, we're not going to do them anymore. But I'll go broke. No, you won't. You'll be more efficient. Spend more time with patients. That's where you're going to get your money, because they're going to now see your confidence level, because what you're going to do for them, you're really good at now, and you know that, and people will pick that up. When you're not good, when you have 20 things in your menu and 10 of them aren't good, people are going to pick that up too. If you went to McDonald's, you went to any restaurant, and half of their menu was crap, are you going to go back to that restaurant? Never.
No.
Right?
No,
Just
it's
do what you
one of
do.
the things that they talked about at that seminar as well was like the 80-20, right? Most dentists are so involved in the day-to-day and the actual clinical care that 20%, which actually is that 20% that is actually their practice, takes up 80% of their time, right? And
Yeah.
that clinical portion, seeing the patients, that, yes, it's very important. It's why you became a dentist. But in terms of the whole flywheel of your practice as a business in your life, it's about 20%. And this is a way to flip it and now start focusing on the 80% that really moves the needle, does matter, and drop the 20% that is consuming too much of your day-to-day, too much of your time, and keeping you from the dentistry you love and the things you love in the long run. So I really appreciate you sharing some of those tips with us today.
You're welcome.
I see we have one question that says, what's the ROI you like to see on a marketing budget? I'll let you go first.
Okay, long-term or short-term? I mean, let's explain how
Both.
you want. So let's say you spend $100 and you got $1,000 patient. Holy cow, we got a 10-to-1 ROI, right? Yeah, but it's not going to move the needle.
Right.
So you have to say ROI plus what's the volume, right? So if I'm spending $5,000 a month and it's bringing in $50,000 a month, it's a 10-to-1, just like the other one, but it's such huge volume. That's what I'd concentrate on. So both. I like to see long-term. What worked really well for me was a 5-to-1 return long-term with
Right.
a large volume. That's a really good. Most
Right.
marketers will tell you a 3-to-1 is really good. To me, that sucked. I wanted more than that. 5-to-1
Well,
was
the truth is, when you're doing the larger production cases, you're definitely going to have that. I mean, we have people who have above 10x ROI. Some people who, unfortunately, they're below because they're maybe running an Invisalign campaign, or they're doing some other service. Whereas somebody gets one patient and they're doing a $45,000 case, and that is, obviously going to skew the numbers a little bit. But I hope that helps a little bit. And we are 1 minute over now, so I'm going to go ahead and thank you, and
thank
thank
you.
everybody else for joining. We know everyone's super busy, and we taking that time out of the day on your Friday to learn a little bit with us. We appreciate it. Again, Dr. Schefdore's information is going to be available. We will have that emailed out, and we look forward to possibly doing more with Dr. Schefdore, but definitely more of our monthly meetups. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.